Hello again. I've got with me today Steven Universe Too Cool for School. The story for Steven Universe Too Cool for School was by Ian Jones Quarty, written by Jeremy Sorese or Sorese. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say that. Illustrated by Asia Kendrick Horton with help from Rachel Dukes, and colors and letters by Leigh Luna with Andy Leigh R, published under Kaboom, and of course based off the Cartoon Network show by Rebecca Sugar. I've been wanting to review this comic for mainly two reasons. One, of course, being that I'm a big fan of the cartoon series. The show, from its visuals to the personalities of each character, is something phenomenal to me. It's one of the best cartoons on television right now. Haven't seen it? Then what are you doing here? Go watch it. The second reason is that I actually have met and talked to one of the artists on the comic. That being Rachel Dukes. Rachel Dukes came to my university one time to do a talk and Q&A about making comics and the economics around living as a comic artist, and we've become well acquainted since then. She is most known for her own series called Frankie Comics, which are about her cat. I recommend checking out her stuff. So, the story of Steven Universe Too Cool for School actually addresses a question that I'm sure a good amount of Steven Universe fans have had in the back of their minds. Does Steven go to or ever went to school? And I do believe that this comic is considered part of the show's canon, even though it was never an episode. So this acts as sort of an explanation for some of the more smaller components of the Steven Universe lore. The story has Connie taking Steven with her to school to give him the experience of being in school, where he begins to introduce himself, and of course Steven, being the innocent, naive boy that he is, doesn't understand the ridicule he gets from some of the other kids who don't believe the things he says about himself and the crystal gems. In an effort to prove himself to the other kids, Steven decides to take with him for show and tell a small shell that belonged to one of the monsters that the crystal gems have fought, only for that to turn into an even bigger problem. So, of course, I'll get going on the art. Well, right off the bat, I've got to say that my favorite piece of artwork in the entire comic is the front cover itself. The front cover was by Rosemary Valero O'Connell. Hopefully I'm saying that right. What draws my attention the most is this particular scene right here with Steven at his desk looking out the window. There's the line work and shading of the characters and objects that help to bring out the scene and make it a little bit three-dimensional, giving it a sense of fullness. So a really good job on the cover. Moving on to the art for the rest of the comic. Just let me find some nice scenes for you guys. Like this one here towards the beginning. The art is pretty good. The artists of the comic do a good job of making the comic feel like the episodes. You know, they look, like Connie looks like Connie, Steven looks like Steven. That simple. And, it gives you a feeling that you're looking at stills. But it's not even just how well they stick to the look, but even just scenarios that they put them in. Like, I'll show you one right now. Like this one right here, where Connie is introducing Steven to the rest of her class, and like it literally looks like I'm looking at a still of an episode. Like, I could imagine this being a scenario where maybe it's not in school, maybe it's like in Beach City in general. You have Connie running into some people she knows at school, and she's trying to introduce Steven to them, and you know, like trying to introduce Steven to her non superhero friends with badass space mamas. And just in general, like the following scenes after that really just show Connie going into despair as she realizes how absurd it must be to the other kids as she's trying to describe Steven to them. Furthermore, there are some approaches to the layout of each page that I think are neat. In one of the first pages, there's this moment where the gems are each of the gems are too busy to do anything with Steven. And I just like the presentation where on each side of the comic, on each like corner of the comic, you show each crystal gem saying that they're too busy to do something with Steven. And the presentation of Steven's reaction to each of the gem, I like how it's presented in this like star-shaped panel just for him. So a really good like decision being made here. Another scene in terms of describing how good presentation and composition was in this comic was right here when Steven was being introduced to at school. Was you see in the background, you see a close-up on Steven's torso, and so you kind of get this understanding that as you're reading the panels and you see Steven getting, picked on, it leads you to when his gem gets activated, and the page right after is, Steven's bubble activating as like a self-defense. And also a really good decision being made here is just the space that the artist decided to give this moment to like show, the space is just perfect to show that Steven's bubble pushed everyone across the classroom. So yeah, really smart decision making goes behind this comic to like give you the best presentation of the story. For the most part, I do like the art a lot, but some of the minor drawbacks that I have with the comic is that the art as well, unlike the front cover, the rest feels mostly flat with the use of just one solid color, no shading or anything like that. Also, I mentioned how I really admired the skills of the artist when it came to capturing the look and feel of the main characters. However, this does not always work out with other characters in the comic, and of course, you could say that's just when you're trying to capture how much attention you're going to give to the main characters versus characters that have no huge contribution to the story. And there's one example that I'll show you, and that's when they have Connie and Steven and Greg at the principal's office. Unlike how lifelike and brought out the Steven, Greg, and Connie look, the principal and some of the other characters at Connie's school, they kind of look a little dull and flat, and this could just be because they're not, that important, but I feel like because at least the principal, for example, can get a scene on her own, because she's a little bit more important, because she gets a scene on her own, I feel like it's more prevalent just how dull she and other non-main characters look in comparison. But other than that, that's not a huge complaint I have. Other than that, the art is pretty good. Some tidbits that I really wanted to mention in Too Cool for School that I thought were kind of fun were just, little moments here and there. I'll show you one. This moment here with Pearl and the principal, just the look on Pearl's face. I feel like that's like quintessential Pearl face. Like that's a face she would make to somebody she's having a disagreement with. So that was really funny. Another one was during this battle scene. Another Pearl moment, I guess, is when they're fighting that monster, is that instead of pulling out her signature spear, Pearl is pulling out Tonfa's, which I don't think has been something that they've ever done in an episode. Usually the gems only pull out one specific weapon. Garnet, her gauntlets; Amethyst, her whip; Pearl, her spear; Steven, his shield. I don't think they've ever pulled out different weapons before. Pearl has used swords in previous episodes, but they're normal swords. They don't come out of her gem. And it does show in like one episode that Pearl does have like a sword collection. But I'm not complaining, to be honest, because I do like weapons like tonfas and nunchucks. But I thought this was pretty cool that they did that. Also, another thing that I thought was kind of funny, for all you Undertale fans out there, trying to see if that can focus. Yeah, that kid in the purple striped shirt, I think that's supposed to be the kid from Undertale. So, for those of you who are fans, enjoy that. Another video game related thing, although I don't think it was supposed to be intentional, but I noticed it anyway, was like Connie's gym coach. I don't know about you guys, but he kind of looks like Super Mario, just older. He's got the mustache, the nose. He's got that same chipper, happy attitude that Mario has. So it's like, Mario retired from saving princesses and decided to become a gym coach. So I thought, some tidbits that I thought were fun to mention. Lastly, Too Cool for School is not just the only story in this comic, actually. There's a second, smaller story at the end called Yardsale, which was written and illustrated by Jocelyn Fenton. For a moment, I actually thought that this was still part of the Too Cool for School, but it's not. It's a completely separate story, although it does kind of like flow well. Like, you could almost imagine that Yardsale happens after the end of Too Cool for School. But anyway, the story's really short, and it's just Steven and the Crystal Gems going to a yard sale and seeing some cool stuff that Vidalia has. And by the end of it, in order to get all the stuff they want, the Crystal Gems cut a deal with Vidalia for Steven to babysit Onion, much to his terror. So, that story was pretty funny. The art's good, again, A+ on making the characters look like the characters. And the story itself does actually feel like a prompt for a full episode of Steven Universe. My final say is that if you're a Steven Universe fan, pick this up. It's got a great funny story. It feels like you're watching the show, which is saying something because it's not an episode. I do feel a little weird recommending this to anyone else that isn't familiar with the TV show. Like, I'm not going to say, you have to buy this or you're going to explode. But it is an all-round good book that I am sure just about anyone that likes colorful, cute stories can enjoy. And if it's your first encounter with anything Steven Universe related, then maybe you might get into it and start watching the show. With that, those are my thoughts on Steven Universe Too Cool for School. I hope that this was an informative or amusing video. Check back soon when I have something else to look at. Until then.